I'll just let them fire away. You guys go ahead and throw me a softball. Nice little, give me a little blooper to start.
So, I mean, obviously you all knew each other when you were at Eastern and Mark was here, but what was the relationship? Does it date back farther than that between the two of you?
Well, the knowledge of Coach Stoops, dates back farther. And I'm from Northeast Ohio, so just that area, I took a lot of pride in just kind of keeping track of the guys that came from that area that were successful in coaching. The Pellinis, the Stoops, Urban Meyer. I just took a lot of pride in that. Hey, this is my home area, and here's these guys out there being successful at the highest level, of college football. So it kind of, dates back to that. And I think people coming from that kind of have they have a work ethic about them. They have a family value about them. They have a toughness to them. So I've known Coach Stoops just through that awareness of where he was from. And then, I just missed him in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I was at Wake Forest, and it was right around that transition time where they were going from Coach Bowden to Jimbo Fisher. And I think my last year was maybe Jimbo's first year on the staff, not as the head coach. And I could tell the improvement offensively. And we had beaten them, I think, maybe 2 years in a row, maybe 3, right around that same time. And then I left, and I thought, what, Jimbo's got that offense going, but, still there's something missing. And then it seems like when Coach Stoops came in and took the defense, Florida State went to a whole nother level. So I kind of had a knowledge of that and a respect of, what he had done there. And then, obviously knew about him, same media people coming down to, to Richmond that were doing University of Kentucky. So a lot of times, it was EKU and then UK as far as, what was going on football-wise. So I saw how Coach Stoops carried himself in the media, and I really thought he did a really nice job. We had that incident, where we had a little issue down in Richmond, and I thought he was phenomenal how he handled that. He reached out to me. He said, hey, I'm going to tell my players if there's any, pushing, shoving, any signs of that this is a lingering thing with what happened over the summer, they're out of there. This is about football, and that really, really impressed me. And then with Joey Kramer, the death of Joey Kramer, excuse me. He was great with all that, how he handled that, and had his picture up on the scoreboard at the game and stuff. So I'm sorry. Am I allowed to drink that? That isn't just for a commercial or something?
What are some of your special teams philosophies?
Well, I really like to be multiple and punt. I just think that, in college football, it's difficult to spend a lot of time on punt return. So I like to keep the blocking schemes simple, but be multiple as far as our formations and shifts and motions. Just because I think that kind of puts the punt return team on their heels, and when you do that, I think that takes a lot of pressure off of your punter. I really like to be aggressive because I feel it's the most dangerous offensive formation in football because it's the only time that you're out there and you don't have to have 5 guys on the line of scrimmage numbered between 50 and 79, so you can make anybody eligible. So I think it's I like to be aggressive. Of course, that's obviously going to come through, Coach Stoops, but I like to, have multiple fakes available, for every game and use it as an offensive, weapon, an offensive formation. Punt return, I like to force the kick. I'm a defensive guy, so I'm sure Coach Stoops wants to, you get a stop as a defensive guy, you want to be done. You don't want to have to go back out there. So I like to force the punt, but not from a standpoint of doing something crazy and get yourself running into the punter or having a, roughing the punter foul against you. So I like to work just the techniques of blocking and really force the punt because I don't want to miss an opportunity for a poor snap, a poor handle, by the punter. And then kickoff, kickoff team is predominantly, the kick and personnel. I mean, that's the nature of it. It is finding, 10 kids that, going to put team above self and run down there with the most violent play in all of college football, and then having a kicker that can get some great hang time to give them an opportunity to get down there, but be at levels, guys at ball level, guys at a net level, guys at a safety level. And then kickoff return, that's one of the hardest things to learn how to play. I got a good relationship with Darren Simmons, who's probably regarded as the best special teams coordinator in the NFL, and he's told me several times those front line guys, that's what he's always looking for. Those front line guys that can drop back 30 yards and put a block on somebody, that has the mentality to be on the kickoff team. To be able to do that, it's an unbelievable skill set, and that's the first guy he looks at when they get their, drafted guys who can be a front line guy on that kickoff return. So I've worked hard at coaching those guys technique-wise, giving them an advantage in probably the hardest thing to do in all of college football. And then keep that simple, because again, you don't get much time there, but work heavy on the technique side. And then all of that means zero if you don't have the players to execute it. You don't have a good punt returner. You don't have a good, kick returner. It's all about talent. This coaching thing is highly overrated,
Have you also been able to watch a lot of film since you've been here, and in what ways are you trying to get used to the roster and everything?
Yeah, well, the first way I tried to get used to the roster was look at the online, media guide and try to memorize the players' names, try to memorize the coaches' names, their kids' names. So that's the first thing. And then we've been watching structure, mostly. And obviously, I see Denzel Ware making plays. I see Josh Allen making plays, but I've tried to just watch the structure and not say that's Denzel Ware. I've tried to learn, hey, that's a track technique, what Coach House and Coach Stoops calls a track technique, and learn that part of it. So I haven't been caught up too much in where the kids are on the depth chart. I'm hoping to start as a blank slate and let them prove that, to me throughout spring practice and through the time I've been here, just watching them, how they work in the winter conditioning.
Since you brought your EKU team here, can you talk about how the talent has improved in the past 2 years since you've gone for Kentucky?
Well, I remember talking to Coach Stoops before the game, and I told him, I said, Coach, I really appreciate you, and I think he thought I was talking about, Joey and the fight and how he reached out and handled all that, and I said, I really appreciate you because you're getting better and talent-wise, and the better you get, the better I get. You get transfers from UK, and they started being guys like Deshaun Mobley. I'm like, I'm cheering for you, Coach, cheering for you to get better. And I really, from afar, there were several times that I just thought to myself, man, Kentucky's the northernmost school in the toughest conference in all of college football, and I've really not noticed, maybe there were other guys that did it, but I just didn't notice guys going north and getting the talent in Ohio and beat the Pittsburghs and the Northwesterns and the Michigan States and the Indianas and the Purdues rather than going down south and try to beat Florida and Florida State and Alabama and Georgia. I never noticed that. But I always thought, wow, why wouldn't somebody do that and take the SEC brand that means so much, in a state like Ohio and, get those kids. And, I noticed Coach Stoops doing that right away. And I just thought that was, to me, I thought that was really, really smart, really, really good idea.
What will your recruiting area be?
Yeah, I'm going to have Tennessee, which I had, as an FCS head coach, you're counted just as an assistant, so you're out the whole time. So, spring ball, I was out. Spring recruiting, I was out all the time. So I'm going to have Tennessee, which I've done, concentrate mostly on that triangle there, Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga, that triangle. Not exclusively, but, the emphasis being there. Coach Schlarman, from Kentucky and recruited the state of Kentucky. So we split that. We split the state in half. I'm going to concentrate on the eastern part, and Coach Schlarman is going to concentrate on the western part. And then, when I got to Charlotte, Coach Lambert gave me Mecklenburg County, which is Charlotte, and that's probably, if it's not the best, it's right up there with North Carolina football. And so I'm going to hold on to that, because I made some good inroads with some coaches down there, being down there for a year.
What does it mean to be back in Kentucky and to sort of be a part of that again?
I
know you weren't on that
yeah.
one, but
Well,
to get back.
I'm from Ohio, but it feels like I'm from Kentucky. I've been there I think 5 years with Coach Kidd and then 8 years at Eastern as the head coach. You know, met my bride there, you know, as an assistant. When we took the Eastern Kentucky job, our kids were 6, 4, 2, and a newborn. So that's all they've ever known. My wife's from Madison County, went to high school at Madison Central and EKU grad. So, you know, it's like coming home. It really is. It really means the world to me. Gets me closer to, you know, Crystal's parents and closer to my parents. You know, we're just, I mean, it's hard to put into words how excited we are.
What's the transition been for you back from being a head coach back to an assistant?
Well, back at, you know, at Charlotte, I felt like I was on vacation, you know, because when you're the head coach, you know, you're responsible for everything short of world hunger, you know. And then I go to Charlotte and I got 5 tight ends in my room, and I'm responsible for those 5 guys. Heck, they're beating me to meetings. They all got a 3.5 GPA, and you know, I'd go home at night and tell Crystal, I'm like, honey, I just feel like I'm on vacation, you know, here just doing this. So I enjoyed that, you know, I really enjoyed. And you know, as a head coach, you know, you always try to create an atmosphere where you know, you're one of the guys as far as with your staff. You know, everybody knows who's in charge. We're all men. You don't need to, you know, so you always try to create that atmosphere. And the same thing with the players. You try to want to be around the players and be a mentor to them and get close to them. But you're still the head coach, you know, so there's still that, you know, that invisible wall, you know, that the assistants kind of, you know, well, you know, should we invite Coach Hood? We're going to do this, you know, so those kind of things. So when I went to Charlotte, I immediately fell right back into and realized, gosh, I miss this more than anything. Just having my guys in my room and getting really, really close with that position coach. And then I was like, I was one of the guys again as far as the coaches, you know. So, you know, I miss those friendships of being an assistant coach.
You have two had already taken the Charlotte job last year when this job opened. But did you have conversations with Mark about joining the staff last year, and how did that process work out?
Yeah, I did, and you know, that's really the most impressive thing, and maybe, you know, one of the things that motivates me the most to want to work for Mark Stoops is, you know, there was a lot kind of said in the media that, you know, I turned down Mark Stoops and rejected, you know, University of Kentucky's offer, and you know, kind of the way it was presented. You know, it didn't say anything about, you know, I had a friend that gave me a job when I didn't have a job, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't walk down to his office and say, hey, thanks for the job, and I know I just went through spring ball, but, you know, adios, I got a better offer, you know. I just couldn't bring myself to do that, you know, and that wasn't presented, you know. So when you have somebody in Coach Stoops' position that, you know, reaches out again after, you know, turning it down a year ago, just speaks volumes to him, to his character. You know, I think as a player, you know, you learn that, you know, adversity builds character. You know, well, then you become an assistant coach and you learn, well, I don't think that's really true. I think adversity reveals character. And then you become a head coach, and then you're like, nah, if you want to find out about the character of a man, give him power. Give him a position. And you're going to find out who he really is. So I'm really excited for that Coach Stoops would reach back out after kind of how that whole thing was presented and say, hey, I want you on the staff. I'm just so impressed with that.
Did Stoops and you have any conversations about the game 2 years ago?
How you doing there, girl? I didn't even recognize you with the hat.
Did y'all have any conversations about the game 2 years ago? I mean, it was supposed to be a gimme, and y'all forced them into overtime.
No, not really. You know, never really did. I mean, I think there was already a mutual respect, you know, before the game, and then that just, I think, grew afterwards because, you know, that's a tough spot to be in. You know, when you're Eastern Kentucky, that's the easy side. That's your Super Bowl. You know, I did no motivating that week, and I'm sure up the road there, 17 miles, he was, you know, motivating his tail off and giving him, you know, every angle that he possibly could. That, hey, we got to play hard. You know, my side was easy, and then they had to come back. You know, they had to come back and score twice to get into overtime, and then they had to finish the game. You know, so there was a mutual respect there, you know, because of that game, how they finished, how I knew as a coach that he really had the tough job, and how he, you know, kept his team in it. You know, when we were up and looked like we were going to take the game, heck, people were leaving, and came back and won the game.
Mark always talks about all the different responsibilities they have that outside linebacker position needs to do in this defense. How familiar are you with that role and all your experience before, and what they want specifically out of that spot?
Well, you know, my background is more in line with Coach House, And that's been good because he's helped me through. I've got a 3-4 background, started with 3-4 with Coach Grobe. You know, Jim Grobe was at the Air Force Academy with Fisher to Berry, and they were really, you know, one of the true slant and angle 50 or 3-4 teams in college football. Him and Cal McCombs kind of put it together. And so when he got the head coaching job, we kept that. And so I was a part of that as a secondary guy, which isn't much different no matter what scheme you're in. But then I was a part of it as a coordinator, so I needed to know the fits of those outside linebackers. But then we basically transitioned into, you know, rather than slanting and angling, to just lining up in a reduction side and an Okie side, you know, and playing the coverage that matched it. So there still is some similarities with that, with Coach House's background in mind for the last, you know, 8 years at Eastern, and I think 5 or 6 we started to get in that at Wake. So there's still a lot of carryover to what those guys have to do. But you're right, they do, you know, they're a hybrid. You know, you got the D linemen and they're D linemen. You got the inside backers and they're inside backers. You got the secondary guys and they're secondary guys. Those outside backers, they got to be part secondary, you know, part fold player inside linebackers, part rush guys like the D line. I mean, they are the multiple piece to the defense.
Coach, in regard to special teams, the University of Kentucky fans have had a little bit of a love-hate relationship over the past 5 or 6 years. When things are going south, it's easy to blame special teams, and when things are going well, I think Coach Stoops has joked that nobody ever says anything, nobody gives them any credit. What can you say to Big Blue Nation to reassure the fans that special teams are going to be just a real critical part of the team's success?
Well, I've already seen, you know, the biggest thing is emphasis. You have no shot sitting in my chair as a special teams coordinator. You have no shot unless the head coach places an emphasis on it. And I've already seen that with, you know, getting the grid for the first 3 practices of spring practice. I mean, there are some places where you don't work on anything except punt for, you know, maybe 7 minutes in the spring a day, and maybe your field goal protection for 3 or 4, and that's it for the whole spring. I mean, a lot of really good programs, you know, and I've already seen the grid, and there is a good time allotment for special teams on our spring practice, even in the first 3 practices. So that's where it starts, is an emphasis from the head coach. And then from there, I think it goes to an understanding of how critical special teams are to your kids. If you take every third down on offense or defense for the year, and you took that number, you know, that's one of the things we emphasize as an offensive or defensive coach. You know, third down, hey, that's money down, guys. We got to get off the field, you know, as a defense. And everybody gets excited, you know, when you get a third down stop, and everybody's going crazy on the third down. I mean, Matt, that's the play that matters. You know, that's the biggie. And then offensively, hey, we got to keep that drive alive. We got to keep those chains moving. We got to get that first down. Third down is huge, and so you work all those situations, third and short, and third and medium, and third and long, and third and extra long, and you work all those things because that is so critical. Well, if you take the number of third downs on offense, the number of third downs on defense, and you add those up every year, it's almost exactly equal to the number of special teams plays for the year. So the things that kids got to understand is every time you go out there, it's money down. Every time you go out there, that's the most critical down in the game, and that's how you have to approach it. So I think it starts with being emphasized with a commitment of time from Coach Stoops, which there is, and then the kids understanding how critical every one of those plays are, so that you get the focus in practice, the focus in the meetings, the concentration on technique and doing things right, and then having talented players. I think those are the critical things.
Both the offensive and defensive coordinators here have a pretty long history with special teams in their time too. Are they helping, or they work with you, or how does that sort of gel?
Well, we were just putting a depth chart together, you know, for punt the other day, and I'm looking and I'm talking, okay, who's going to watch the right side, left side, and oh, well, Coach Grant will watch the right side, he always does, and Coach House will watch the left side. I'm like, holy Moses, I got like those 2 guys are my helpers, you know, coordinated the special teams, you know, at the highest level, you know, the 2 of them. So I mean, you want to talk about being blessed, and you know, and I'll lean on them too. I mean, there's, you know, you get multiple eyes on things, and guys from different backgrounds but doing the same things, you know, punt return, kickoff return. So, you know, I'm going to use them as a resource, you know, big time, and that's a great comfort, you know, to know that those guys are here.
Then you got Josh Allen, Denzel Ware. Several publications have them rated in the top 5, 6 in the SEC at their positions. What do you expect to see from them by the end of spring practice? And what are your initial thoughts after you get to see them for the first time?
Yeah, initial thoughts are those kids have no problem with work. I mean, I've noticed just an incredible intensity and, willingness to do things right. You watch that, because the stations were already set up when I got here. So, I asked, hey, what do you want me to do? Well, just kind of follow your group around and watch your guys. So I've been fortunate to be able to just watch them go through the stations. And, as a coach, the first thing you're looking for is effort. See, how hard do they go? And then the second thing you're looking for, are they doing it right? Are they following instructions? When the coach says, hey, touch the line, are they touching the line? When they say, go around the cone to the left, are they going around the cone to the left? Those little things, really, really matter. So initially I've been very impressed with them, with just their work ethic and how they pay attention to detail and do the little things correctly.
Punting was something of a question last year and consistent at times. What's the message to Grant this spring as a young guy who's, there's not any other scholarship punter on the roster? Right?
Yeah, just relax and know that, first and foremost with our punt team, it starts with the protection. Obviously from there you got to go to the coverage and coverage lanes and all that type of stuff. But just to have faith in the protection. I think when a kid realizes that I am protected, just like a quarterback, it's the same as a quarterback in that pocket. If you don't feel like he's protected. So I think that's the first thing, is just to, make him have a confidence in me as the coordinator that, hey, look, I know where to protect this thing at, and you're going to have a nice pocket to punt out of to get him to relax. Because, what I've heard, I haven't spent a lot of time on it just yet, but what I've heard from the other coaches are, booming it in practice, and has the leg, has the talent to do it. So, we'll film him obviously and check and make sure that, his drop is correct and where he's striking the ball is correct and the right, part on his foot and those types of things. But it sounds like that's not the issue. Sounds like in the game, maybe just having a confidence that, hey, everything's okay and I'm going to take this thing and go ahead and punt it with no problem.
You got to look at any potential return guys that you'd like to be catching?
Have not yet, been really concentrating on, learning the defense. Got into special teams the start of last week, just talking scheme and making sure we were good on what we were going to do going into the spring, but haven't had a lot of time just yet. I've heard some of the coaches talk. They feel like we got a couple good guys that are candidates that we need to find out about in the spring.
Anything else, guys?
All right, thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.